Let's talk a little bit about something else that's been in the headlines here that, in news organizations, we're kind of doing it, as it drip, drip, drip comes along. But I really wanted to have you look at the big picture of this latest fraud scheme and what's happening. So just to, if you don't mind, I'll just set it up super quickly here. Let's see. So it has to do with a Minnesota healthcare program that was meant to help people on the autism spectrum. And this was discovered actually during the investigation into Feeding Our Future. And then yesterday we saw our first charges. So a 28-year-old woman, $14 million in a wire fraud charge. And the U.S. attorney saying this is really just the tip of the iceberg. So comparing this to Feeding Our Future, as we're sitting around talking at the kitchen table with our family, do I say this is even bigger? Has the potential to be even bigger? Or how does it
I don't think we know yet. I mean, so what I have been doing is looking at the money allocated by the state budget that went into these programs and then saying, well, how much was fraud? How much did fraud cost those programs? So in the autism program, Feeding Our Future was over $400 million. There's not $400 million in the autism program, so I don't think it could be as big. But there could be more people. There could be some connections to the same people. This woman was part of Feeding Our Future fraud. Then they discovered the autism fraud. And this is in addition to the housing stabilization fraud. The charges, 8 people were charged last week. And so you start to, look at this whole picture. And it all comes back to the state government, the administration from DHS, and providers and HMOs who have to, so if somebody suspects fraud and they're the administrator of the program, they have to tell the Department of Human Services. They have to then do an investigation. They then have to turn the findings of that investigation back to the state, and then the state says whether or not you can cut somebody off. And there can be months and months of that. I represent UCare, I have for 10 years, and I was saying to them, they've had some of these cases where they flag it, they do their investigation, but it can take 3 or 4 months to get an investigation done, and then 3 or 4 months to make the determination of whether or not you're going to cut somebody off. And so there are certain requirements when you look into it that take a certain amount of time. People I talk to are like, how are we not just freezing all these programs before we figure it out? There's some legal contracts that the state has to consider. One of the housing stabilization providers already sued the state, saying you can't cut us off. So these are complicated, but it doesn't, common sense would say, oh, just fix this. It's easy to fix. And it's not as easy to fix as it probably should be.
What does the internal auditing system look like for these programs?
So I think that is the big political debate at the legislature is, shouldn't there be somebody independent looking at these? I'm going to say something I haven't really said before that is the quiet part people are talking about. There are state employees who run these programs like it's their own program. The legislative auditor said state employees have to stop viewing this as their duty to hand out money and start looking at themselves as regulators determining whether or not people are qualified for money. And we haven't seemed to have gotten a grasp on that, which Joe Thompson, the acting U.S. attorney, has said. This is cultural within state government, and that's one of the challenges I think that they just haven't been able to clamp down on.
So, and just really quickly, because I thought this was fascinating, the state auditor doesn't actually audit the state.
Correct.
The legislative auditor audits these state programs. But so I guess when we talk about this under, Governor Walz on his watch, we know he's running for a 3rd term. How much damage, if any, does this do to his campaign?
I think the reality is we don't know. One of the things that we haven't had in the last couple of governor's races is we haven't had an issue that lingered. We were coming out of COVID, schools, that was the 2022 race, but then we had the Dobbs decision from the Supreme Court, and that was a quick issue that changed the mindset of the electorate. In 2018, when Governor Walz ran in an open seat, it was kind of, he versus Jeff Johnson, won Minnesota versus, a more conservative state. This fraud issue is likely to linger, and we have 14 months left. So if it lingers for 14 months, it may be one of those things that Governor Walz can't get out from under. or there's going to have to be so much change within state government that people really feel like there's a plan going forward, and we're going to have to wait and see.
People at home might be wondering, all of this money we're talking about, these millions and millions of dollars, did this somehow come out of my pocket, or does it affect me directly financially in any way? Can you help kind of clear that up?
Well, there's a couple ways to think about that. A lot of it's federal money that's a pass-through from the state. So state administers a federal program, feds send us our money. Second could be they allocated more money to this program because we had that big surplus. Ultimately, this is all public money. So it all comes from taxpayers. And so, yeah, it does. And arguably, if there's fraud in these programs, and then we don't spend as much money on other priorities, schools, healthcare, nursing homes, whatever it may be, then those programs need more money. It's going to come from taxpayers.
Okay, wow, yeah, I mean, it's just these in the headlines. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. It's just pretty incredible to follow along. Thank you for helping us put that into perspective.